If you're an adult dancer and you're working on your flexibility, I want to give you a reality check and a massive dose of hope. Flexibility is not about passively forcing your muscles to get longer. It's not about stretching harder. And it's definitely not about comparing your 35, 40, or 65-year-old body to that of a teenager's. Adult flexibility is a conversation between your muscles, your fascia, your joints, and your nervous system. And also has a lot to do with your ability to generate strength within the range of mobility that you're trying to access. And when you understand how these systems work together, flexibility becomes way less mysterious and way more achievable. Today, we're going deep, like full masterclass deep. We're going to dive into the different types of stretching: static stretching, dynamic stretching, ballistic stretching, and PNF stretching. We'll talk about how something called the Golgi tendon organ actually dictates your range, how contracting a muscle can actually increase your flexibility. We'll cover proper warm-up science and the 3 most important regions that adults need to stretch. We'll also get into what you probably don't need to stretch, like your poor adductors. Some upper body mobility for your shoulders, neck, and scapula. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to do a whole bonus section on mobility and flexibility for your feet. This is going to be your blueprint for achieving and sustaining flexibility as an adult dancer. So let's dive in. We'd like to begin with the science of flexibility for adults. Before we talk about stretching techniques, we really need to explain why you feel tight in the first place. Number 1, your muscles may not be the problem. It could be your nervous system. When you stretch a muscle, 2 things happen. Your muscle fibers lengthen and your nervous system asks, is this safe? If your brain is over here saying, I don't trust this movement, it's going to produce a contraction that protects the joint. This protective mechanism is called the stretch reflex, and it's protected by something called the Golgi tendon organ. The Golgi tendon organ, I know, funny word, sits at the junction where your muscle connects to the tendon. What is the job of the Golgi tendon organ? Basically, it's to constantly monitor tension. When tension in your muscles rises too quickly, like when you yank yourself into a stretch, the GTO, the Golgi tendon organ, sends a signal to your brain saying, stop! Warning, 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 contract the muscle, protect the joint, warning, 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 danger. This is why your legs shake in stretches. You feel tight even after stretching daily. You never seem to gain lasting flexibility. And it's because the GTO is protecting you. But guess what, guys? There's a magic trick we can use. When you gently contract the muscle you're trying to stretch, it actually causes the GTO to change its mind. Just a 5 to 10 second simple isometric contraction causes something called autogenic inhibition, which quiets the GTO's protective reflex. Once you stop the contraction, this allows the nervous system to relax and your stretch to go deeper, which is why PNF stretching, short for proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, is super effective for adults. It teaches your nervous system that the range is safe, it bypasses the reflex that locks you up, and your results last longer. This simple method of isometric contraction into a longer stretch has unlocked flexibility for thousands of dancers, especially adults. There's a final misconception that seems to be still following us around. Passive flexibility is actually the goal. Just because you can get into the splits doesn't mean you can use that range in your dancing. Real active flexibility means you can lift your leg there, you can hold it there, and you can control it there. Range of motion is really only valuable if you have strength inside of it. This is why so many adults feel loose but weak, bendy but unstable, stretched but unable to lift their leg higher or feel freer. At the end of the day, it's strength through range of motion that gives you accessible flexibility. So now that you know some of the science behind how flexibility works, it's important to warm up before you start your stretching. A warm muscle has more oxygen, moves more fluidly, has more elastic collagen, responds better to nervous system cues, and reduces your Golgi tendon organ hypersensitivity. Here are the absolute no-nos that we should never do first when we're starting our flexibility. Long, passive stretches, deep splits, slow static holds that go on for minutes and minutes and minutes on end. These all make your GTO panic and will reduce your flexibility over time. Here's what you absolutely should do first. We want to warm up gently, so we need to get our heart rate up a little bit by actively moving through space. Some of my favorite exercises: moving hip circles, glute bridges, plank to downward dog, arm circles, side to side lunges, and even squat to pike. You could even do some ankle glides, marching in place, and gentle rises. All of these exercises are examples of mobilizing your joints dynamically. Think about gently moving through positions as opposed to holding them for long periods of time, which is going to dynamically mobilize your joints, activate your synovial fluid, and allow you to safely get into the positions you're going to need for your dancing, as well as prepare your body for stretching, should that be what you're about to do. If you're not sure what to do for a warm-up, I actually have a link down in the description that will take you to my warm-up and cool-down guide. It's completely free. Go check it out, and that will show you exactly the patterns and the exercises necessary to get you warmed up, both for class, but also in case you want to do a good mobility session. That being said, all of the exercises I just demonstrated while explaining things are exercises you can use to help to mobilize your body before stretching. So we have 4 types of stretching, and I'm going to take you through all of them now so that you understand the benefits, the negatives, and what you should use in your training to get your best results. Number 1 is static stretching. This is what you're going to do when you hold a position for a long period of time. Think coming down to the floor, putting one leg out to the front, bending over, and holding that stretch for 20 to 60 seconds. This kind of static stretching is best when you're cooling down. So after you've done a massive day of work and you need to come down from that work, use it in your cool downs. It can also improve your tolerance to stretching. So if you're not used to it, gradually building up your static stretching after you finished working for the day is a great way to improve your stretch tolerance. It's also fantastic for flexibility maintenance. If you're already flexible and you're wanting to just maintain where you're at, stretching passively or statically is going to help you in that way. Do not use it during your warm-ups. It is not going to help you guys. Stop static stretching before class. It will not help you build strength in the range of motion because the muscles aren't contracting. In order to build strength, you have to have contraction. So it's not going to help you be able to access the range that you used in that static stretch. And it's definitely not going to make you rapidly improve. So if that's what you want, go to the other ways of stretching. They're going to be more beneficial. We all, as dancers, tend to rely too much on static stretching because sometimes it can feel good just to sit in the splits for a little while. But the truth is, guys, static stretching is not going to improve your flexibility long term. Dynamic stretching is the opposite of static. Dynamic stretching is the opposite of static stretching and can be super beneficial. It's movement-based stretching that uses a controlled range of motion. Here are a few examples. Leg swings, thoracic rotations, controlled hip circles. This type of stretching is excellent for warming up, as we've already discussed, because it's going to get blood into the joints, it's going to make them move better, and you're going to be able to access the range of motion that you've unlocked before the class. Dynamic stretching teaches your brain how to move safely, and adults make faster gains with dynamic work as opposed to static work. What about PNF stretching, or proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation? This is the type of stretching that might require a partner or an extra resistance band in order to do, because we have to contract the muscle first before going deeper into the stretch. This type of stretching is best for rapid flexibility changes, stubborn tight areas, and for those of you who feel like you've plateaued and you don't seem to be able to get any farther in your stretching. Besides, this is the most nervous system friendly stretching for adults. There is one more type of stretching that we'll talk about, although I say this, use it at your own risk and only if you're trained enough to use it. Ballistic stretching. This is really useful if you're a trained athlete, specialist at plyometric work, and you're already essentially a very strong mover. I don't recommend it if you're hypermobile or anyone with massive joint instability. Ballistic stretching is basically stretching on steroids. You're going to get into a position and rapidly pump into that position. So for example, going into a split and bouncing in that split. Ballistic stretching can be dangerous. It can cause muscular tears if you're not warm enough because it fires that stretch reflex aggressively and causes your GTO to go wild. So I definitely don't recommend using it, especially if you're hypermobile, have joint instability, or are not very flexible at all to begin with. It's a very specialized type of stretching that must be used with lots of caution and care. We're going to dive into 3 areas now that adults absolutely need to be stretching: your hamstrings, your thoracic spine, and your hips. It's likely that your hamstrings aren't actually as tight as you think they are. They're just being very protective. Oftentimes your hamstrings are guarding for hip weakness, protecting that sciatic nerve, reacting to posterior chain stiffness, and even responding to fear of falling. Here's a few exercises that you can do to help mobilize your hamstrings and get them feeling a little bit more open when you're dancing. First one is what I like to call the elephant walk or neural glide for your hamstrings. This can be done at different levels. This should be done cautiously because it can overstimulate the nerves, but it's a great way to open up your hamstrings. So bending forward or using a chair, you're going to go as far forward as you can and try to get your hands flat to the ground. If that's too tight, you can place your hands on a chair and bend as far forward as you can with that resistance there. Starting with your knees bent, you're going to extend one knee at a time, coming back to that position, just gliding through that movement. Think 30 to 60 repetitions, alternating legs. And then as you come back up, make sure you return slowly to standing so that you don't get dizzy or lightheaded in that return. Another option is that PNF stretching we talked about just before. As a reminder, here's how it works. Grab some sort of resistance, come down to the floor, stretch until you get about a 3 out of 5 discomfort. And then you're going to push against the band after about 20 seconds of stretching hold for about 5 to 10 seconds, and then pull that stretch a little bit deeper. Do this 3 times on each side. and then have a rest. Oftentimes we get a bit confused as to what the tightness is in the back of our legs. If you're feeling pain up here, it's definitely hamstring. The farther down that pain goes, and if you start to feel it behind your knees, it's very possible that your calf muscle is tight. We can do the same type of stretch with a flexed foot. It's going to help to open up that calf muscle, the gastrocnemius, so that it's not restricting your hamstring in that motion. The muscle itself may not be your restriction, your nervous system may. And so doing things like proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation or PNF stretching, or even the elephant walks that I just did before are going to help to glide that nervous system so that it naturally opens up, allowing the muscle to fully stretch. The second most important area for adult dancers to stretch is their thoracic spine, their upper back. Most adults have a stiff mid-back because of the way they sit at their desk, driving their cars. Stress breathing up into the shoulders, and even rib cage immobility. Think about how stiff your ribs feel and how restricted your breathing might feel. Could be part of the problem. This stiffness is often going to force your hips to overwork and your legs to compensate. So the first stretch you're going to implement is threading the needle with rib breathing. When I talk about rib breathing, here's how we discover this. Place your hands on your ribs, face a mirror so that you can see yourself. And then when you breathe in, you don't want your shoulders to rise like this. You want to try and open your hands to the side. So you inhale. That's going to train your ribs to expand as you breathe. You may find this very difficult, and that may be where you start with this exercise. Once you've developed that ability to rib breathe, you're then going to come down to the floor, and you're going to inhale as you lift to the ceiling, and then exhale as you come through all the way down to the floor, trying to get your ear down to the floor. Inhale as you reach up to the ceiling, and then exhale as you reach across. This is working on rotation through the ribs. It's also working on spinal mobility in that rotation, and it's going to help to open up your mid-back quite a lot. Do 3 sets of 10 on each side. Even if you just do this before class, it's going to help to open up your body before you get into doing things like circular port de bras, développés, or even fondus and pirouettes, because your upper back needs to be nice and mobile to make sure you can do those safely. Our second exercise is going to be our cat-cow. We're going to focus on the thoracic spine as we mobilize through anterior and posterior tilt of the pelvis. So coming down to the ground, our knees are going to go directly beneath our hips, hands directly beneath our shoulders. We're going to arch our back and then come back into this rounded position. Doing that 10 times, working through those ranges of motion as far as you possibly can, is going to help to mobilize your upper back. Third exercise, standing against a wall. You're going to bring your arms up along the wall and then back down again, creating almost like a snow angel on the wall. As you do this, you want to make sure that your ribs are not expanding and contracting the whole time. This is working on scapular control up against that wall, maintaining posture, as well as working on your shoulder range of motion, your scapular range of motion, and mobilizing your upper back. If you think about it, in ballet, we do have a built-in thoracic extension, which comes from the cambre that we do generally at the beginning of class. If your thoracic spine is not mobilized and you start to go into that, you're generally going to start to try and do that bend in the lower back, which is going to cause more injury. So mobilizing your thoracic spine and working in that upper back extension is going to help to reduce the risk of injury. It's going to help with your développé arabesque. It's going to help with your support in your upper body. And it's going to allow you to move freely with your épaulement. The third area that we all need to be stretching as adults is our hips. But that doesn't mean we need to be overstretching our adductors all the time. Adults love to sit in a middle split, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily productive. Here's the truth. Your adductors need to be strong, not floppy. Overstretching them leads to unstable turnout, pelvic wobble, poor balance, hip impingements, and even difficulty closing your legs into fifth position. So here's what we should be stretching: our deep rotators, hip flexors, and our posterior capsule. Mobilize the hip rotators, put your foot up onto the bar, and open your knee out to the side. Instead of just bending forward, you're going to bend on a diagonal over towards your foot, thinking chin angled towards the foot, and then come back up. Angle towards the foot, come back up. Do 10 on each side, 3 sets. Make sure you're working nice and slow, so maybe 3 to 4 seconds going down and then slowly coming back up. This gives the muscle time to stretch dynamically without putting it under too much pressure. To mobilize our hip flexors, we're going to do a lunge extension. So come down to the ground, place a mat underneath your thigh, and then lunge as far forward into your front knee as possible. Try to stretch your back leg without lifting your thigh off of the mat, and then come back down. It's a very small movement, but it's working on that hip extension. You can see that my heel is pointing up towards the ceiling and my toes are tucked. This keeps the pelvis neutral without letting it open and allows for us to really focus on extending through the hip flexor as we stretch. Do 30 seconds on each side as a way to mobilize the hip flexor before getting into class. And watch your arabesques open up like never before. The last one is an internal rotation mobility flow. Coming down to the floor, you're going to sit with your feet out in front, and you're going to rotate the knee in towards the ground. Working on maintaining the foot connection so that they're not moving around. We want to do 30 to 60 seconds of this to get the internal rotation on both sides of the hip. We work so much in external rotation that we often forget that mobilizing internal rotation can help with our turnout. When we become dominant in one way of motion, the joint starts to become stuck in that way of moving. And so working in the opposite range of motion actually allows for greater range to be achieved in both directions. So now we've got our spine moving, we've got our hamstrings flexible, we've got our hips starting to feel good. But what about our shoulders and our back and our arms and our neck? We need to stretch those as well, don't we? Go ahead and grab that old broomstick you've got lying around, and you're going to grab it with a nice wide grip. Going over the top, trying to keep your arms as straight as possible until you feel a stretch through your pecs, and then coming down. Hold that stretch for 1 to 2 seconds, and then come back again. We're going to do 5 repetitions of this. Nice and slow. Try not to let your shoulders rise or your ribs extend as you go to the back. Controlling the ribs, just allowing for the stretch through the pectoral muscles and through the shoulders. If you're very hypermobile, you might find this stretch to be easy. Go slowly, work through range of motion. It's not about forcing yourself into the stretch. It's about gradually mobilizing that part of your body through that range of motion. Our second one is our neck. We need to mobilize the neck. We need to be able to turn our heads fully to side, up and down, because we use our head a lot in ballet. And understanding how that mobilization is going to allow us to move better starts with the stretching of our neck. So we want to look up towards the ceiling, down towards the floor, over to the side, and then over to the other side. Now you can bring the chin down, so we're starting to get a little bit of a stretch through the trapezius at the back of the neck. Rotate around, coming over to the side, rotating the head, coming all the way around, and then down. And then going the opposite direction and coming around. Now, this is a very gradual movement. We don't want to throw our head around, move it very forcefully, especially to the back. Trying to keep length as the chin goes up, not crunching into the neck, and slowly moving through that range so that we progress mobility of the muscles that support our cervical spine. Now we have 2 exercises for our scapula. One is going to be a scapula push-up, and then one is going to be a scapula pull. If you don't have the ability to do a scapula pull, just stick with the push-up, but I'm going to demonstrate both of them for you now. Coming down to the floor, knees on the ground, you're going to drop all the way into your shoulder blades so they're pulling together, and you're going to push all the way up so that our shoulder blades are pulling apart. All the way together and all the way apart. That's working on that scapular retraction and protraction, that glide in that direction. And then if we want to do a scapula pull, you're going to sit down and you're going to pull so that your scapula come down towards the floor, and then allow your shoulders to rise up towards the ceiling. Down towards the floor, up towards the ceiling. You can do this without your body weight. You can also do it hanging from a bar and try to pull your shoulders down and raise them. Working in these 2 patterns of movement where we're doing the retraction and protraction, and then the elevation and depression, is going to help our shoulders and our scapula to be able to glide properly. Now we've done all the big parts of the body, the mobility in the hamstrings, the mobility in the hips, the mobility in the back, the shoulders, the neck. But what about our feet? Our feet tend to be lacking in range of motion, especially as we get older. That big toe tends to lose a lot of flexibility. And there are some exercises you can do to help to strengthen and mobilize at the same time. You're going to start by grabbing a yoga block like this and placing it over against the wall. Bring your big toe and your feet, bring your toes up against the block like this, and then you're going to push your knee into the wall and then come back. Knee into the wall and come back. Knee into the wall and come back. Working slowly, do 10 to 20 reps on each side. This is going to start to mobilize underneath the foot. It'll reduce some of the tension in your fascia, in the plantar fascia, and it's going to help to mobilize that big toe. Once you've mobilized it, we want to develop strength through range of motion. So stepping your feet back at an angle, you're going to rise up as high as you possibly can and then come back down, feeling that range of motion in your big toe expand as you rise up, doing 10 to 20 repetitions of those rises angled away from the wall. We can also do an anterior tibialis stretch and activation by placing just above the metatarsals onto a yoga block on the floor, and then pressing our toes into the ground and then releasing. So press the toes down towards the box, hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then release and go deeper into the stretch. This is going to create a little bit of depth of range of motion in the ankle, but it's also going to activate using the PNF method of stretching to connect the anterior tibialis in a little bit of press against the floor before going deeper into that stretch. Make sure that you're also using things like anterior tibialis raises to ensure that your anterior tibialis stays strong, because it's the main way that we decelerate our movement as we're coming down from a jump, or if we're going for a run. Now, this video has been a lot about stretching, how to stretch, how to increase range of motion. But what we haven't talked about is the key to making sure that this is all usable in your dance, and that is acquiring strength through range of motion. Here's the truth. If you can stretch, but you can't hold or control your leg in that position, it's not accessible. You don't own that range. We really want to have control at the end range through the entire range of motion, and that takes years of practice and strength to develop. This is why I love things like eccentric lowering. For example, getting yourself into a stretch, letting go, and then slowly lowering that leg down to the ground. Doing lunges that go to a full range of motion to gain extension through the hip flexor while also strengthening our front leg through that range of motion. Eccentric split glides, where you're using your hamstrings not only on the way out to stretch, but on the way back in to return from the glide. Even dynamic isometric squat holds, where we work on stretching our adductors in this range, but also are holding in that position to develop strength in that alignment, as opposed to just sitting in the splits. Flexibility gives you access. Strength gives you control. Together, they unlock your artistry. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to put together a video where I dive into a complete program to help develop your strength and your flexibility all in one. Flexibility as an adult is absolutely possible. What you need is not harder stretching, but smarter stretching, built on science, nervous system safety, joint mobility, and strength through range of motion. Warm up properly. Use the right stretch for the right moment. Stop forcing your body, and build strength whenever you gain new range. And remember, we practiced for many years. Your best dancing is ahead of you, not behind.